It's another Monday, so it's time for another Roll to Roll. I'm Benj.
I'm Chase.
I'm Dave.
So this is our second episode. First episode, we did an introduction to ourselves and to 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Today, we're going to do a lot more in-depth introduction to 5th edition, talking about mechanical changes and just basically, the big differences between 3rd and 4th edition. So first off, we talked about it last time. The first big thing is they made the numbers a lot smaller. You don't have a base attack bonus that goes up to 20. You don't do half your level as a bonus up to 30th level. It's caps out at 6 in the late game. And that really brings everything really more into perspective. So now, a 0 level commoner could theoretically hit a 10th level beholder.
He's going to regret it, but he can.
Yeah, it's right, but there's a 17 on the die.
Yeah.
So if the beholder has an armor class of 17 and that peasant rolls a 17, that beholder gets poked
for 1 damage.
For 1d4 minus 3. So, and I was talking to Dave the other day, and I was looking to see if I could find a way the highest armor class with just what was in the player's handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide. I capped it out at 33.
Right, I remember talking about that.
Yeah. And it takes a 20th level barbarian who happened to find a book to increase his constitution and a book to increase his dexterity. Also, it's got to be a dex build barbarian, which makes no sense whatsoever. Although it is viable because Gauntlets of Ogre Power exist.
Automatic 19 strength.
Automatic 19. It's not as good as 20, but 6. But you get your constitution to be 26 because at 20th level you get that bump to of 4 to your constitution. You need a 20 dexterity with a book bumping it to 22, a shield, bracers of armor, ring of protection, cloak of protection. With all those bonuses come plus 3 shield. Not just a shield, a plus 3 shield. And with all of those things, which no one could ever find, your barbarian has an armor class of 33.
And it just really proves the point of 5th edition.
And a terrible wisdom save.
Yeah.
So you're good. Hold person. Now none of your stuff works. Great.
You're a sitting can.
But, I went back and forth on whether or not I like this mechanic. And I'll go last. Chase, how do you feel about flattened math?
Well, coming from someone who you two have at least heard had some hate for some of the mechanics of 3.0, 3.5, I like it. I know it has its problems because there's always going to be problems with flat math and magical items. And as a DM, you run into some issues. But all in all, I like it. I think it was the best way they could go with the system they have right now. So yeah, that's my 2 cents, I guess.
Dave, where do you stand?
I rather like it. When I first saw it, I thought it kind of felt like depowering the characters because you didn't have these huge numbers like you did in 3E where you'd have, plus 15 to attack and an armor class of 40. But in looking at it, I actually like it because it makes a lot less paperwork, for lack of a better word. You don't have to constantly change your numbers over every level. You've got to bump all these things up by 1 and erase your character sheet and rewrite all this mess. So I'm a fan of it.
Yeah, I did have an overly complicated 3rd edition character who was a ranger barbarian foe hunter, and anything I had 8 different base attack bonuses depending on whether or not I was raging and whether or not I was using both weapons, and then also changed my armor class. So I had 8 different attack bonuses and 8 different armor classes, and every time I gained a level or got a new piece of equipment, I had to recalculate my armor class and my attack bonus 8 times. And I had a note card, and my dungeon master made fun of me. And he would go out of his way to give me a new bonus just to make me mess up my note card. So, I mean, I guess it made my character stronger because the dungeon master was messing with me. But at the same time, it was a nightmare. But anyway, I like the flattened math for armor class. I don't like it as much for saving throws.
Yeah,
because
early game, it makes early game really rough for a spellcaster.
Early game is rough for spellcasters, which I can't feel too bad about because the rest of the game is amazing for spellcasters.
Right.
They really upped magic in this version.
They really did.
Yeah, as far as your casting classes, they're really good. And not to say that martial classes aren't good as well, but the early level magic hits really hard. And I to some extent I guess that makes sense because you can only cast your spell twice.
Yeah, you
But
get 3 of
like
these.
your actual not
Godspeed.
your cantrips. We're not talking cantrips because those are totally fair.
Which is
But
actually something
your
we should go
actual
into, right? Is how cantrips is a pretty new thing for casters.
oh, we were going to get to that when we got down to the talking about magic, I guess. But we can talk about that now if you'd like.
Hit me.
I mean, it was kind of like at will powers in fourth edition.
Yeah, just things that you can just do
You know.
no matter what. You can always just ping out with those cantrips.
Yeah, I can always, if I'm a wizard, I can always throw magic missile,
Yeah.
which made sense. I mean, in heaven help you in second edition, if you were a wizard, you got one spell a day. After magic missile, you do your 1d4 plus 1, and then you hide
Yeah,
because that's it. That's what you've got today. And let your fighter go handle business because, a level 4 fighter can take a dragon in second edition. But, in third edition, it was similar. You could cast 2 spells at first level, and then you were pretty much done.
yeah. And you have to sit time out for a while until you can take a nap.
And now they've really made playing a spellcaster at first level and early levels, low levels, viable. You can actually do it,
Right.
and so that I'm pleased with. But the saving throws are a lot lower, so it's a lot easier to save early on.
Well,
The
and
thing that
add
drives
to
me
that,
nuts
they also
is they
changed
get a lot
saving throws.
tougher a lot later.
They,
I'm sorry.
they also changed saving throws. So instead of having your reflex, your fort, and your will like you had in third and fourth edition, every stat has its own saving throw. So you have your strength, your dex, your con. You have a saving throw for everything,
Right.
which is another change from third.
To wrap one's head around, but it does make sense, and it also makes certain saving throws a lot more powerful than others.
Right.
'Cause I was about
Like
to
if you
say.
can spell a charisma save, it's going to work
Yeah.
because nobody has a charisma save except clerics and
Warlocks
paladins.
sorcerers.
And the few things that target charisma saves are not good because that's going to be your charm and your dominate, most likely.
Yeah, I was about to say,
The one that I'm thinking of is Bane
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
and Confusion.
Ooh. Yeah.
And Bane is amazing. I love Bane because if I can get that to work early in the fight, now I've wrecked their saving throws for the rest of the fight. If you can get that early, it makes all your spellcasters' lives a lot easier for that. And since it's a charisma save, it's very likely that it's going to work. So they're losing a D4 on all their saves for the rest of the fight. So, yeah, your whole person might not work at the beginning of the fight, but after that Bane goes off, like you got guys standing around.
Yeah.
Advantage, disadvantage. How do we like it?
It definitely simplified a lot of things from older editions. I mean, it is just flat out. I'd say 75% of any effect in 5e is going to involve around rolling 2d20 or, well, 2d20. One's good and one's bad. Like that's your bread and butter.
Yeah, and it kind of seems like it replaced a lot of the small little bonuses and debuffs you get all over third edition, and it makes it a lot easier because instead of having to track, you got a +1 from this and a +2 from that and a -3 from that. It's just you roll 2 dice and you take the highest one for advantage and the lowest one for disadvantage. It makes it a lot easier to track a bunch of conditions in combat.
Yeah. And just for anyone new listening to this, by the way, you never double up. So if something gives you advantage, you have advantage. You don't get double advantage. And
Right.
if you have disadvantage, you never get double disadvantage. But they can cancel each other out. And then you
Right.
just
If
do
you
a
have
flat
both,
roll.
you just roll 1 die like
Yeah.
you normally would.
You got it.
Yeah, and I like it because third edition and Pathfinder were notorious for stacking bonuses.
Yeah.
This is an enhancement bonus, and this is a natural armor bonus, and this is a luck bonus, and this is a divine bonus,
And this is a morale bonus.
and it just,
yeah.
and a morale. It's exactly like pick a word and throw bonus at the end, and it exists.
Yeah,
Exactly.
sure.
In third edition and Pathfinder. So your base attack might start on like a 3, but after you add all your bonuses, you have a 14. And it's come on, like what I like, and I believe I read it somewhere in the player's handbook. They did the math, and for those of you who don't know, and why would you? Because this is our second episode. I'm a math guy. I'm very numbers intensive, and they apparently did the math. And having advantage is basically like adding 5 to your average roll, and having disadvantage is like subtracting 5 from your average roll, which is kind of like what you've got in third edition of Pathfinder with all your bonuses. You know, adding 5 is kind of the norm, but you don't have to worry about it. It's not there, and it's not a static +5. It's just statistically, it's like having 5 more on the die, which I really like. I like the simplicity of it. I like that I don't have to track all the sources of bonuses. It's just, oh, this guy's flanked. He's easier to hit.
Yep.
Roll 2D the better.
If the item you just got is going to stack with the other ones you have, or if you have to figure out which one you want to use, which was always my problem in 3E, of remembering what items gave what kind of bonuses and which ones I could and could not stack with.
Exactly.
So I like advantage because I don't have to remember all that stuff anymore. It's just I have advantage or I don't, or I have disadvantage or I don't.
Now, there are a couple of other ways that you can get bonuses. The Bless spell and Bardic Inspiration come to mind immediately. But I like it because it's another die roll. It's not a static bonus. So you remember it because you're rolling another die.
Yep. Great system.
Oh, wait, I've got +2 from Bless.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I've got a +3 from my Bard telling me what a great job I've been doing.
Right. I don't know how many times I had bonuses like that in combat that I forgot about because I can't remember that I have a Bless spell or a Bardic Inspiration in 3E because I don't have a good way of tracking that without writing all over my character sheet and erasing it.
Yeah, especially when you're playing a generic party of like 4 to 6 players. Because by the time it comes back to your turn, so much crap's happened. Like
exactly, it's hard to keep track. Whereas opposed to like Ben said, you're rolling a dice. You take that D4 and you set it next to your D20, and you know to roll both of them together because you have both of them.
Yep,
it's a lot easier to remember you've got it.
Yeah, especially if you've got your standard party and everybody's doing their job, and your bard is throwing inspiration around, and your cleric is blessing people, and your druid gave you bark skin, and your sorcerer gave you stone skin, and your paladin is giving you a bonus to your saving throws because he's so swell. You know, no advantage, disadvantage. It's great. So I'm glad we all agree with that. That's pretty fantastic. Another big change that we're looking at is the way magic works in 5th edition. So in 3rd edition, you had your different level spells and your different level spell slots, and each one went into those. So you cast your first level spells out of your first level slots, your second level spells out of your second level slots, and so on and so forth. And you could change that with a feat. You could take the heightened magic feat and cast and prepare a lower level spell at a higher level to possibly get some bonuses or increase the save DC for it. But for the most part, to each his own. First level, second level, second level. 4th edition, everything was turned into a power. So you had your encounter powers, and those were essentially your spells that you got to cast as a spellcaster. But 5th edition, you have your spell slots, and you have your different level spells, but you can cast any spell out of any slot that level and higher. And if you use a higher level slot, you get a more potent version of the same spell. So again, for those of you who don't know me, I play clerics. That's what I do. Anyone else who plays a cleric in my group comes to the Bench School of Cleric Building, and I help them out. Cure Wounds, first level spell. I can cast it at 4th level and cure 4 times as many hit points, which is awesome. In 3rd edition, I had to prepare a first level cure spell, a second level cure spell, a 3rd level cure spell, and so on and so forth. So that was kind of a pain in the neck. How do we feel about the new spell casting?
I also like it because it is very flexible. Like you said, in 3rd edition, if you wanted to use those meta magic feats, you had to prepare them beforehand and assume you'd have a chance to use your heightened enhanced fireball or whatever. Whereas in 5th edition, you can just cast it on the fly, like you've got your fireball, but I'm going to cast it 2 slots higher and do extra damage because I need that. It's really handy and makes for a much more flexible system. Changes they put into the spell slot system.
Yeah. So, all of you listening don't know this, of course. These two guys do. I would actually never period, never play a caster in 3rd or 3.5. It was just too much to remember. In the words of Ben, too much to math, just too much to do. I was always the fighter or maybe a monk, and I just didn't want to deal with spells. And then 4E went the complete opposite direction. Like Ben was saying earlier, everything was an ability. You know, it might have a different effect than the fighter's ability, but at the end of the day, it all was, this is what you do, and this is how many times you can do it, once a fight, once a day, or these you can do all the time. 5th edition spell is that perfect fusion. So you have like your cantrips, which is similar to the 4th edition. You can cast these all the time. It's great because now you're never really out of gas when you're a caster, which was a problem in those older editions. When you cast all your spells, you were out of gas. You were done. You begged the party to rest because you needed it. But then you also have the spell slots. So you can, like Ben was saying, you got a level 1 spell, but you got a 5th level slot. That spell hurts or helps a lot now. And that's just, I don't know of a spell that isn't dramatically improved for each level. I mean, it's I like it. That's all I got to say about it.
And one other thing, if I can add on, is it makes a lot of your early level spells more viable later on in levels. One of the problems you'd have a lot is your low level spells just stop being useful as you go up in level. And this slot system means that your 1st and 2nd level spells are still useful later on down the line because they get boosted abilities if you throw them in a bigger slot. And there are some areas where you're going to have higher level spells that may not be as useful right now, but you can throw that 1st level chromatic orb into it, pump it up quite a bit, and you've got a useful spell.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I like that it adds another layer of resource management. Do I want to use my 6th level spell slot for my 6th level spell that I know, or do I want to dramatically improve that pretty solid 3rd level spell that I have? So it's
Exactly.
It adds another dimension to running a spellcaster. Again, if you're a new player, I would recommend against playing a spellcaster. Not because you can't, just so you can learn the mechanics of the game. If you want to go out and play a wizard right out of the gate, you're welcome to it. You're gonna have a rough time. I would recommend you stick with a martial class like a monk or a fighter, or if you absolutely had to have some spellcasting, you pick one of the hybrid classes like a ranger or a paladin.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
That gets some magic, so you can learn the magic aspect of the game that way, but still have kind of a simpler character to play.
And this is going to sound mean. I know I'm going to get some hate for it, but we're on the internet now. Hate's going to come. Sorry. But just trust me, don't play a warlock for your very first class into 5e. It's a whole nother ballpark. It's not hard. I want to emphasize it. It's not a hard class to play. Once you get the idea, it's out there and it's simple. But just trust me, take a vet's advice and just make that your 2nd class. Maybe even your
Chase,
third or
what was your
fourth.
first character in 5th edition?
I'm not talking about it.
As I recall, wasn't
No.
wasn't it Warlock?
No, it's fine. Moving on. Yeah. Next segment.
Man, that was a bad idea.
I'll agree with him because I'm getting ready to play a warlock, and it's not that, like he said, it's not that they're hard. They're just their spellcasting is so different from the other spellcasters. It takes some time to get your head wrapped around how they work.
Yeah, the short and curlies is everything's maxed out. Not like you don't always cast a 9th level spell, but whatever slot you have available, that's what you're going to cast at for whatever spell you have. And there's a bunch of other little things, but that's the key. And it's learning another system on top of already learning the new magic system. So again, I would just save it for your 2nd one. Just advice from someone who did it to themselves.
So I only brought that up to point out that your first character was a warlock, to emphasize that you're speaking from experience.
Yes. And this is someone who's
that
DM'd.
it's a good idea to listen to you.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And the last thing that I really wanted to talk about today was really probably the first thing we should have talked about, which is character creation and how that's different from previous editions of the game. And it's not that it's that different, because you still have the base stuff, but they did throw in some extra stuff that I really, really like. So your normal, like if you're just, you open up page 1 of the player's handbook, they start talking about how to create a character. The first thing you talk about is your stats. And the stats are the same as they've always been in Dungeons and Dragons. You got your physical stats, your strength, dexterity, and constitution, and you got your mental stats, your intelligence, your wisdom, and your charisma. And they recommend point buy or a standard array of 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8.
Yep.
8.
Pair of 12s, 8. Pair of 12s, 10, 8. Is that it?
No, you
No,
had it right the first time.
I was
15,
right the first
14,
15,
13,
13,
12, 10,
12, 10, 8. Yeah, that's 6 numbers. Okay. What are your thoughts on the standard array and or point buy versus rolling?
8. I'll actually go first on this one, just because I got some DM tips behind this. So I'm gonna give a player advice and a dungeon master advice on this one. We'll do the dungeon master first. So to the new DM, you've read the book, you're ready to help your players make their characters so they can play in a pre-built or a world you made your own. My advice for the first time, go with the standard array. The 15, 14, 13, 10, 8. I know some players won't like the 8 because it's going to give it a negative, but one of the main things about 5e is a role-playing tabletop. They've definitely meant it to be, you really kind of need to role-play your character. It's not first edition where you just go into the dungeon, kill the thing, and leave. So that negative stat, just tell them, that's your role-playing stat. Pretend it's okay to be bad at something. And even then, it's a -1. It'll be gone as soon as they level up some, and they won't have to worry about it anymore. For the players, try to get your DM to also allow the alternate setup. It doesn't really change the math. So if you want to do like a min-maxer, if you're that guy, binge, you can. And it doesn't really add more math for the DM to worry about. You don't have to worry about the party running into that beholder and just crushing it. As compared to the potential of rolling, which was my last thing, and I'll toss this off. The second or third game, DM players, doesn't matter. Let them roll. If that's what they want to do. If they want to take the standard, let them take it. But if they want to roll, let them roll. At that point, you have enough DM knowledge to where you can run the game and work it out. And they get to enjoy being strong. I mean, that's the whole point why we play, right? To feel epic, to feel like the hero or heroine. It's what we like, so let them do it. It's fine. It will work out. With the flat method system, you'll be okay. And that's my 2 cents on that.
From my perspective, I like rolling for my stats because I like rolling dice. The problem with that is my D6s don't like me, so I end up rolling pretty badly and ending up with characters that are less powerful than they would be if I'd just taken a standard array and kind of walked away from it. That being said, the standard array, it's an easy way to pop in because you don't have to spend time rolling and then deciding what stat goes where so much, and also complaining when you roll, 4 1s or 3 2s or really, really badly like I've done. Point buy system is also pretty simple to get behind, but usually you'll end up with something similar to the standard array anyway if you do the point buy, because you're going to want stats that are pretty well spread out. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the older editions of D&D where you rolled for stats or got your stats before you got your class, because they used to have stat minimums for classes. Like you had to have a minimum strength to be a fighter. And if you didn't roll that well for that, you're not playing a fighter this time. I like
Those
rolling for stats.
never that tough though.
No, but
like it was like a 9.
But then you had the paladin that was the most. They had the craziest stat distribution. You had to have every stat at like 15 to qualify for it.
Yeah,
but they got rid of that, thankfully.
It was an 18 strength and a 14 wisdom.
Yeah,
I don't have my second edition player's handbook in front of me, but I believe that's what it was.
Yeah, but anyway, I like all 3 systems: point buy and standard array and rolling dice. I prefer rolling dice just because I'm a player and I like to roll dice. I like knowing that there's a chance I'm going to roll really well and get that 18 that I can throw into something and be that much better at my class than I would be if I'd taken the standard array. But after doing it for a while, I'm fairly more inclined to take the standard array because, as I've said, my D6s hate me, as do pretty much all of my dice, as both Benj and Chase can attest.
Yeah,
I like rolling if the rolling system is lenient. The guys I played with in college, when we rolled stats, and those of you who are new players will not understand what I'm saying at all. It was 4d6, re-roll 1s, and pairs of 2s. So I could roll a 6, a 6, a 2, and a 1, reroll the 1 and get a 2, reroll both of those 2s and get another 6. The roll for keep the highest 3 is pretty standard, and it'll get you something statistically pretty close to your standard array. I like the standard array. I don't have a problem with the standard array, other than that 8, because, as a player, I don't want that 8. But point buy, I usually buy the standard array with the exception of I drop the 15 to a 14 so I can bump that 8 to a 10. That way I don't have a penalty. And the difference between a 14 and a 15 is non-existent. Like, there is no difference between a 14 and a 15.
Because your modifiers don't change except on even numbers.
Yeah.
And when I buy my stats at a level up, I'm going to put both points in the same stat. So it's going to go up to a 16 and then an 18 and so on and so forth. So that's my typical strategy with a point buy. But I like the fact that they've got the standard array and the point buy, because in all of the materials that you have, the player's handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the monster manual, everything is balanced as though you were using the standard array. It makes the Dungeon Master's work a lot easier because they don't have to adjust the monsters or the enemies that you face, because your party is stronger than the game has been balanced to.
Yeah. And as someone who's ran too many games to count, I can 100% vouch for that. You can always just pull a monster of the monster manual and go with it. You don't have to alter it. You can, but you never have to.
And your maximum is a 20 anyway.
Right.
So it's not like you're going to take every stat to 20. You don't need to. Every class needs basically 2 stats. Some of them even less. And we can talk about Dex being the catch-all stat later. But I like the standard array or point buy, because you can get the standard array out of point buy.
Yeah.
Also do a crazy min-max thing with 3 15s and 3 8s. And so you're going to be really, really good at half of the things you do and fairly bad at the other half. And that's, that's the player's prerogative if that's the thing you want to do. I, despite what Chase kind of alluded to there, don't do that. I like to be fairly balanced. I like to be really good at some things, but overall, I prefer to be balanced and able to do all the things that I need to be able to do my job. After you pick your stats, you race your class, and then my personal favorite, the background. I want to take just a brief minute to talk about backgrounds, and then we'll wrap it up. I'm going to go ahead and talk about why I love it, because they take the guesswork out of where your character's from. There's some jerk who wants to be a prince. There is, and they're like, but I want to play a prince. And the dungeon master has to either say, no, princes don't adventure. You're stupid. Princes sit in court and stay safe because they're the heir to the throne. You can't be a prince. Why are you stupid? But they'll always insist. And then the dungeon master, in order to, maintain the group, has to, cave and come up with some way to make that character a prince.
Right.
Because there's the noble background.
Yep.
It's amazing.
And to go a little bit more in that, it's not just, you were a thief when when your character was growing up, or you were a noble or whatever. It also gives all the little nitty gritty details too. So like, what is your character's motivation? Like, what's what makes them go forward? What's their bonds? What's their flaws?
What are their
that's
ideals?
in there. Yeah, all that's in there, ready to be used and even rolled. If you really just don't want to pick, you can just roll it and have a character generated in
it's a fantastic tool for role playing. You get other bonuses. You get proficiencies in languages from your background. You get a special ability from your background, and the game gives you guidelines to make more. So if you don't like the 15 backgrounds that are in the player's handbook, you can work with your game master to make your own.
Yeah.
To be, whatever you want to be. They've got really good options there in the book, but if none of them do what you need them to do, you can make your own, and it's pretty easy to do. I worked with Chase to make a background for the last character I played in his game, and it worked out fine. It didn't work out fine for the other players because they hated me, but as far as a background is concerned,
it worked.
It worked. It was functional.
It was fine
and balanced. So,
well, that's the thing, right? I mean, I guess this would be the final takeaway about 5e as a whole. It's, without purposely trying, it's really hard to break 5e. I mean, 5th edition is just, it's just made to work. I mean, it's just made to go with what you got. So,
Yep. And it's also made so that every class is viable, and you could play any class and have fun and be just as useful as your buddy who's playing a completely different class. It's made to facilitate playing the game.
And there's enough variety. I mean, one of the complaints I'm hearing a lot on the internet is that there's not enough variety in your options. But realistically, this game's been out for 3 years. We as a group have been playing, every weekend for 3 years with, a couple of breaks because life happens,
and holidays and stuff.
Vacations, emergencies, whatever. But for the most part, we've played once a week, or at least 2 or 3 times a month for the last 3 years. I still haven't played a barbarian.
Yeah,
I still haven't played a. I mean, you can say there's not enough options, but have you literally played everything? And I haven't even played. I play a lot of fighters, but I haven't played all 3 kinds of fighters that are in the book. I play a ton of clerics, and I've only played, I want to say 3 of them out of the book to begin with, and there's 6 or 8.
Yeah.
So, that there's a ton in there, and it's balanced, and it works, and they're releasing more stuff, which again we will talk about at another time.
Oh yeah, because there's a lot of goodies coming.
Yeah. Closing thoughts. I think you already gave yours.
Yeah,
it's built to work.
I'm good. Yep. 5e's
right,
awesome.
well,
buy it or download it for free if you're one of those people.
I'm one of those people. All right, well, that's what we've got for this episode. Again, keep checking us out on Mondays. Keep doing the things that you're supposed to do on the internet with the subscribing and the liking, and most importantly, tell your friends. Tell your friends to tell their friends. Keep on rolling.